The government's been super slow on getting involved with the cannabis industry within South Africa, and we may finally be seeing some sort of action from their side. There's been some cool news recently in South Africa. We've analyzed it a bit, and we thought we'd chat a little bit about what's happening with cannabis in South Africa currently.
It's been a slightly long time, actually, since we've had a bit of positivity in the industry. Obviously, this year has been pretty horrific with regards to, well, the government, I suppose, hasn't had time to look at cannabis at all. We've had load shedding crises, we've had economic fallouts, we've had like confusion around supplying arms to Russia, and a lot of terrible things have been happening this year. And it hasn't really, any of it's really focused or helped towards getting cannabis moving. But I think the whole concept of this meeting now in up north or in South Africa with high up, so it's all there's obviously the government side of it, then there's representatives from medical, there'll be representatives from the agricultural side, representatives from culture and community and local communities, and that's all gotten together. And I think basically it's a good sign. I mean, there was some handwritten note that I saw going around signed by the president saying, "Oh, we welcome you, and thanks for coming." And I think the ultimate goal of it is to get a bit of investment back into the country. And I think if there's one thing that can get investment back into the country, it's cannabis.
Yeah, it was earmarked, or the cannabis and hemp industry was earmarked as one of, let's say, 10, I can't remember the exact number, industries that the government's going to be focusing on going forwards to bring investment and capital and job growth, and that's exactly what we need. And like Andy was saying, I think we've all felt it as sort of businesses or individuals in the industry. But growing's taken a massive hit with not being able to power your grow lights. So I think a lot of stores have seen that same thing, and it's been a hard time in the industry. And to stay positive when not much is happening, it gets difficult sometimes. But we all love the plant, and we all want to see an adult use market, and to be able to cultivate and enjoy our craft cannabis. So a little bit of the government coming on board and starting to speak to individuals who are knowledgeable about the industry, who are part of the industry. Mm-hmm. It is a good sign, because it's going to take speaking to professionals in that industry to fast track any kind of legislation.
And historically, they've always made these decisions completely blind. Like the government's not the person to make the decisions on cannabis. Neither are they the people to make the decisions on hyper technology like space travel and satellite networks and things like that. Like, they're not qualified to understand it. They need to bring in community experts. They need to bring in industry experts. They need to bring in, and I mean, even like Sharper as like a medical board. They also lack the research on cannabis because of its historical status. So they need to bring in as many people to make this decision, but they can't sleep on it. Like Germany, when they've now been pushing and very quickly ramping up their legalization plan, and they're selling out on grow shops that are popping up. Like, the industry has taken over us, even though they started a hell of a lot later, and they have all the regulations around the EU, because they can't have, once you're in the EU, if you have cannabis in one country, you can easily just move between countries within the EU. It's not no one's ever really going to detect that. So you really have to acknowledge that. But they're still moving on it, and they're getting progress. It's doing well for their manufacturing side, because there's people buying equipment, there's medical facilities going up, EU GMP stuff getting produced, and it's just like, everything that they do better there is going to start pulling away from any possibility that we have as a export country. Come on, when we are agricultural powerhouse, we could be exporting like the best quality isolates, the best quality distillates and extractions and medical grade product to the whole world. But no, they're just sleeping on the legislation, they're sleeping on the regulation. And then also, okay, I don't want to rant too long, but all of this is happening at a time now that cannabis feels more legal than ever. and that irritates me that they if they leave it too long, there's just going to be an overthrow, and whatever rules they put in place, people aren't going to listen to anyway.
Oh, they're missing out on potential incomes by ignoring it, and just people getting more and more brazen. But I was actually watching something on YouTube the other day. I can't remember, some overseas, some American YouTube channel, and they were looking at different sort of territories around the world and seeing when they've sort of decriminalized and then or legalized, and then when like official regulation has come into place. And apparently, classic South Africa, we have been the slowest from the time that sort of September 2018 when we had a ruling and actual legislation coming into play in the market. So we've been the slowest of the world in getting regular from the time a ruling has taken place to the time regulation has come in. So guys, we're not showing much speed in this department. But it's actually, it's quite sad, because what the whole thing about that was that, a market can't grow without legislation. So they were saying basically, South Africa's suffering. And I mean, as South Africans sitting here in South Africa, I think we've seen that in the market. It's hard to put a lot of investment into something that you're not sure about. So we're not going to bring in these the astute business people or people who are willing to risk their capital until we can have legislation. And I also once again think we're sleeping on sort of just the massive amount of tourism a club model country or an adult use country would bring in. People travel for cannabis, and I went to Amsterdam in 2014. I mean, it was one of the only places you could go back then. America was a bit out of the budget. But, I think that if South Africa were to get adult use or some kind of adult use industry going, we'd see crazy kinds of tourism taking place. And I think it could just be direct capital in, so the longer we take, the more we miss out on these exciting parts of the industry, and the more we have to kind of continue sort of, running from the cops because you want to grow a couple plants or trade some mad amongst friends. That's stupid.
They're wasting money on police force. They're wasting money on these, drafting all these bullshit legislations. That is, they every proposal except the latest one's got some glimpses of progress, but they're going like, oh, if your plant's more than 8.5 centimeters, then you're fucking going to jail, and like, how's that possible? How are they going to regulate that? Are you
sorry, officer,
stupid?
It grew overnight. Yeah, it was 7 centimeters yesterday, I promise.
Oh, you got to be kidding me. Like, how do you put it even in the best, most advanced, sophisticated countries in the world, they're not going to come with a ruler and measure your plants. It's just not going to work. They don't have the time. They don't have the time. They can't even think of much shit they can't do already, and now they want to come measure your plant. It's not going to happen. So they're doing that. They're wasting money on police. They're wasting money on stupid legislation, and they're wasting money on just on lost opportunity costs, because Swaziland's exporting. They're exporting. Maybe it's not as listed, but it's. They exporting around, or they're producing more than we are. Local countries, it's going to creep into Africa. We have the chance we could at least be the center of Africa as a production house, and then we could go from Europe to South Africa, and South Africa to the rest of Africa as a way into the market for equipment, for supplies, for everything like that. But they're sleeping on that. And, here we're sitting with the crisis of people without jobs, unemployment. There's a lot of people that still sustenance farm, just on their livestock, just on their little plot of land, and they just grow enough to sustain their own family. There's still a lot of families like that. And you throw in a couple cannabis plants into that mix, you significantly change lives. And it's like this easy, just make it not something that people are terrified to do still, even though it's legal to grow. Give them an option, a gateway to profit off that. I mean, we can profit off so many worse things in society, and now you want to put your foot down at this plant that's proven to be harmless, has no historical harms. It makes someone irate, but I suppose this is meant to be optimistic and positive, and there's progress, so I'm quite excited about that. Dean, timeline. Last thing. Where do you think we're gonna?
Skeptical as ever. The government's all talk, no action a lot of the time. But I think the current climate in South Africa is dire. Probably, in my working career, since I've been interested in these kinds of things, is probably the most difficult time I've faced. So, you know, I think that the time has run out, and now I think they've been forced to go, instead of, they were like, oh, we're going to research it all ourselves, we're going to come up with the best plan, we're not going to consult, you know, we'll decide and you guys follow. And I now think that they've done nothing, and they've got to a point where they know there's money to be made, and they have to consult with stakeholders in the industry to fast track legislation, because they're not going to have time to do it themselves. So maybe we'll see some action next year. You know, the government's slow over the winter, so maybe by like summertime 2024 we'll hopefully see something. And you know, I would open any kinds of, you know, it's a bit rough to say, but any kinds of movement on their side right now, just to see something happening, because a bit of, you know, cannabis in South Africa could use a bit of positive media. And you know, there's a lot of people who are interested, and there's a lot of people who have invested or who are waiting to invest, and we just need a bit of, like, you know, mainstream media related to cannabis again, to build a bit of confidence, because, you know, there's a massive confident community of people who love cannabis, and there's just so many different jobs under the spectrum, you know. So we need something soon, but I wouldn't say it would. I'd say, you know, a year, maybe this time next year we'll see some action. And you, Andy, you got any more? You're a bit more confident in your projections?
Not really. I think there'll be some news this year. There'll be something coming out that'll there will be a milestone of some sort. I'm not sure what, but I think that'll come still in the next 6 months. Other than that, we might still be in for a slower ride. But let us know your thoughts below in the comment section, then we can let's try see where everyone else's opinion. Maybe this is just me and Dean. You know, we're just two guys. Let us know what your thoughts are. Let us know whether you think they're going to legalize, how long, what they need to do, what they should be doing instead. And hopefully we'll see you guys next week in another episode. Peace, guys.
Peace, guys.